I think something that the pandemic kind of opened my eyes to, especially during that time, because we were shut down here in Massachusetts. I didn't know my neighbors.
Mm.
And I'm like, how do you live here for like in this building for 5 years and you don't even know the people that live next door to you? So I think that was kind of like a wake up call for me. So I think that's something that the pandemic kind of forced me to slow down a bit and realize like we don't have community here. We need to work on building some type of community.
Well, I'm a gym rat. I go to the gym every day. My gym is closed, but I like that community because it connects you with people you wouldn't normally be connected with in the same way that if you live next to somebody you can't choose, and that really can foster. Just went out to Illinois, to Marion, Illinois, to visit Daniel Hale, a very courageous whistleblower who exposed all of the civilian killings by the drones. He was in the Air Force and was a drone operator. He's now spending 45 months in a high security prison in Marion. I didn't get in. I'm going back. They're going to apparently let me in. But so I went to the gym and I spent 4 hours working out and lifting with one of the corrections officers who works at the prison and a member of the Illinois State Police. And, that is, I don't come from where they come from. But you have to hear, if you can build those kinds of bridges, as Lord Salisbury said, there's no permanent allies. There's only permanent power. I mean, this was, of course, let's go back to the brilliance of Fred Hampton and why the authorities were so frightened of him. That Fred, who certainly was acutely aware of racism, also understood that those class divisions were used against us. And I worry about the left because it's let's talk about the educated left, because they're so caught up in this boutique activism and this kind of cancel culture where for the slightest faux pas you write people off. I mean, Shama Sawan, I think, has pointed out we're never going to reach the working class of any color if we walk into those communities. First of all, you don't reach those people unless you go in and listen. I mean, all of my ideas of prison reform don't come from anything I thought up. They come from listening to my students who are incarcerated, who know full well how to break the back of mass incarceration, which are campaigns to pay them a minimum wage, because the systems couldn't sustain itself economically and people in prisons are working 40-hour weeks if they were paid minimum wage. That's what they like, the Free Alabama movement, all those. And I'm a Presbyterian minister, and I was called in to speak to the church, and so well, that's what they want to do. And the church was appalled, and I said, well, it's really not up to you. It's up to them. If you don't want to listen to them, which they don't, because they're liberals, they want to look like they're doing something. I mean, I spoke at Harvard during the Occupy movement, and Harvard was quite astute about how to choke off the Occupy movement. So you had a group of tents in the middle of Harvard Yard. Interestingly, they weren't Harvard undergraduates. They were graduate students, most of whom had gone to Berkeley, and they had set up their tents, and then they put campus police at every entrance into Harvard Yard, at every gate, and nobody was allowed to get in unless they had if they weren't a Harvard ID, unless you had a 24-hour pass signed by the president of Harvard. Well, I had a lecture, so I had one. And I gave my lecture. I was they were supposed to stay at the faculty club. And they said, okay, well, we'll take you back to faculty. And I said, no, I'm sleeping in Harvard Yard with the kids. And the deans met, and finally campus security came down at 11 and said, okay, but I said, I got a pass. It's legal. I can stay here. And they said, okay, you can stay if you don't create problems. Well, the next morning, I hadn't slept because I wanted to sleep, but they wanted to talk. So I stumble unshaven and unshowered into the faculty club to have breakfast with the dean of the divinity school. And he said, well, we really want to, at Harvard Divinity School, be relevant, to the Occupy movement. And, just wondering what you thought we could do. And I said, well, the faculty could go out and sleep in the middle of Harvard Yard like I did last night. Well, of course, they don't want to do that. They want to appear relevant. That's what liberals always want to do. Never forget that. They're really, I lift weights with a guy who's like a big donor for APAC. I used to before the gym closed, and was a commodity traders on Wall Street. I mean, commodity traders are satanic. I can deal with him better than I can deal with liberals, because at least he is who he says he is.